Hello, ASU. Welcome to Dune, movie night. I'm Cady Coleman, a former NASA astronaut and ASU's global explorer, as well as a professor of the practice at the School of Earth and Space Exploration. Plus, I'm a part of the Interplanetary Initiative. The Interplanetary Initiative is an across ASU endeavor to think about how are we going to become an interplanetary species? What are the hard steps we're going to have to take? And what are the different kinds of disciplines, everything from law to art to medicine to psychology to engineering? What are the hard questions that we're going to have to answer before we can be an interplanetary species going and living on other planets? And in fact, Andrew Maynard and myself are the co-hosts of Mission Interplanetary, which is a podcast that talks all about those things. But one of the things that we love to do at CC, School of Earth and Space Exploration, and the Interplanetary Initiative is really think far ahead into the future as if there were, we could just invent any future that we wanted, and it would be a future where people were living on other planets. And we like to imagine what that is like. And that's why I think it's really cool to be watching Dune tonight together, because we're going to see what it's like to live on another planet. Now, granted, it's the planet of somebody's imagination, and the things that are hard there and the things that are easy there and the things that are fun there are different than on our planet. But it's going to give us a little bit to think about, like, what would it really be like to live someplace where it was so different? As an astronaut, I flew twice on the space shuttle, and then I got to live for almost 6 months up on the International Space Station, which I really loved. If I could have spent another 6 months up on the space station, I would have, in a minute. I didn't really want to come home because it was like living in a different world where the rules are different. And, without gravity, we get to fly everywhere. It's not about floating, it's about flying. I really loved living there. But that kind of exploration starts with learning, and learning starts with asking questions. And that's what we're going to do for a couple minutes until the movie starts. We're going to have some questions that we have collected, and I have brought some friends from the School of Earth and Space Exploration from CC to help me answer them.
Those who are selected to go to Mars are going to need to train a whole lot to really grasp what a mission to Mars will be like. So maybe they'll spend some time training on the moon or on low Earth orbit, because those can be fairly good analogs and can help their bodies adapt and acclimatize to all the stresses of space. But then the trade-off is that you have all these stresses being built up, such as radiation exposure and loss of bone density. So how much of the training of the prospective Martian astronauts do you think will be in space, if any? Thank you.
Tasha, you asked a really great question, which is literally, how do we get ready to go to Mars? There's a lot of things that the person or the team that goes to Mars will need to know how to do. And space is actually the place where you really get to practice that. You can practice on the ground, but you need to go to space in order to really have the full experience of operating a spaceship, living in a spaceship, making sure that you can stay safe in a spaceship and accomplish the mission. And so when we're trying to do that right now, we have all these places that we can be getting ready to go to Mars. We can do that by having people build rovers that have instruments on them that are getting sent to Mars to collect data about what Mars is like. And a lot of that is happening right here at CC. Almost every picture that you see of Mars that comes from the Perseverance rover, that is coming from the cameras that were built right here at Arizona State University, just down the road. It's so cool, I think. And so we're trying to find out what is Mars like, but we're also trying to make sure that we're building the right spaceship, and that it's going to be one that knows how to recirculate its air and its water. And it turns out that actually doing those systems, we find out how to recirculate air and water and take care of our planet down here too. So that's kind of a cool benefit. But in the meantime, what about the people who are getting ready? So we all learn how to operate spaceships, how to live up there. But for the people who will go to Mars, Tasha has a very good point, and that is that we don't want them to practice too long up in space because there are some hazards for us from radiation, from bone loss, things that we're researching right now. And so we try to make sure that, when we're getting ready to actually send people, there'll be people who are experienced. They will have lived in space for at least a while. They will know how to operate, but they'll also have to spend a lot of time on Earth getting ready and understanding their Mars spacecraft. And so it's going to be a really busy job for those first few people training to go to Mars. Here's a question. If we don't even know yet whether there's life out there, then what do astrobiologists do? I enlisted the help of Pilar Vergelli, who is a PhD candidate in astrobiology. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I'd like to know, Pilar, I'd like to understand, what does an astrobiologist do? And what is watching Dune like when you're an astrobiologist?
Hello, my name is Pilar Vergelli, and I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in geological sciences at the School of Earth and Space Exploration, and I'm an astrobiologist. I'm still sometimes surprised by my introduction because I absolutely did not start out knowing that I wanted to study astrobiology. I actually completed a degree in retail and consumer sciences. First time around, got a job in New York that showed me that I didn't want to spend my life in corporate retail. So I completely changed my life and went back to school and got a degree in ecology and evolutionary biology. And through that degree, I learned about astrobiology, really from listening to the Star Talk podcast. And that got me really interested in incorporating more ecology, what I was studying, into astrobiology research. So as an astrobiologist, I'm curious about life on Earth and potentially on other planets. So I saw a lot of research that was focusing on specific microbes like extremophiles, and people talking about individual types of species that could represent life with those environment types on other planets. But what frustrated me about that was that life doesn't exist in a bubble. It co-evolves with the environment and exists as a system, not just individual species. So in my research, I like to think about ecosystem scale patterns within biochemistry, specifically the elements that they use, that life uses in different ecosystem types, and how that elemental use may change on other planetary surfaces. So for me, watching the movie Dune was really fun because I enjoyed the creativity and showing how the relationship between life and the environment is pushed to the extreme, and how this advanced technology helps them. And this is actually why I really love science fiction. Not only do I get to transport myself to a potentially alternate timeline in our universe, or in a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away. I get to imagine what life and technology would be like in 1,000 years or something like that. But it really inspires people to push the boundaries of our science and technology in real life. Science fiction can lead to science fact, and I think that's just so creative and cool.
This next question calls for a desert expert, or at least someone who's really wanted to understand them and is learning all about them. So, Justin Baez is studying geology, paleontology, and biology here at ASU. He's a fourth-year student. Justin, here on Earth, surface of the Earth, mostly water, how can we have deserts? And especially right here in Arizona, where we live in a desert.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening in. And to get at the heart of the question of what is a desert and what makes a desert, you want to be thinking about one key resource, and that is water, or the lack of water in an environment. There's so much water on the planet. Why is Arizona a region where you have lack of water? To think about this question, you want to be thinking about earthly processes that go about on a daily scale, on a yearly scale, and other time scales, such as the geologic scale that occurs throughout large expanses passage of time. In the case of Arizona, you have downwelling air that's very dry. That dry air that originates from the equator and comes down into the desert environment. You have low humidity occurring as a result. In the case of specifically Arizona, you have a rain shadow effect where you have large mountains that bordering our western boundary that blocks the amount of moisture coming in from the coastal environment, specifically the western coast of North America, the Pacific Ocean. All that gets blocked by these tall mountain ranges, which minimizes that humidity as well. Other features that make Arizona desert or deserts around the world is the amount of water resources flowing through their environment. In the case of Arizona, you have more water flowing through than originating from the region. In the case of the greater Southwest of North America, you have water flowing in from regions like Colorado or maybe even Utah. They flow through Arizona, these rivers. And over time, those resources get used up or gets distributed differently depending on the topography. But overall, what that accumulates is a very arid environment within Arizona. If you want to learn more, I would encourage you to actually go hiking, go looking at sand dunes, go look at the world around you, and ask these questions, and eventually even work up the ambition to go to museums or galleries to increase your knowledge about desert environments and global environments overall. So yeah, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your movie.
For this question, I'm going to the space side of the School of Earth and Space Exploration. I've got Ed Bowie. He's a PhD candidate in astrophysics. And Ed, here's the question that people have been asking. If we, as Earthlings, living here on Earth and looking out at the stars, we are told that we are made of the stuff that stars are made of. Is that true? And if so, how does it work?
So, most of the elements in the universe actually comes down to just two, hydrogen and helium. In fact, over 90% of the universe is made out of just hydrogen and helium. And all the stuff we see around us on Earth that seems to be fairly common, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, silicon, that only makes up like 2% of all the matter in the universe. And that's kind of crazy because all that stuff is fairly common on Earth. But when you go out into the universe and you look at everything as a whole, it's very, very rare. And we know through modeling and observations of the oldest objects in the universe that it started out as just hydrogen and helium. And over billions and billions of years, new elements started to come about through stars. New elements were either made in stars or in stellar explosions and the supernova that happened over time. And as those processes go over billions and billions of years, somehow all these elements came out to form our sun, to form the planets around the sun, to form the molecules that are common to us, things like water, carbon dioxide, methane, and many, many more. Out of those molecules, we're able to come up with life somehow. Life was able to evolve and to get more and more complex, build on itself, and get to what we see today, where we look around and we see an Earth that's populated with plants, human beings, animals, birds. Humans were able to take some of those elements and craft even crazier things out of it. Make a cell phone out of the silicon that was made in a star at some point. So I always found that kind of amazing to know that everything around us, all this stuff that we think is common, is actually really rare when it comes to the bigger universe as a whole, and that all of it has a common origin, a star. Somehow, some way, it was all made in a star. At some point, all these atoms will find themselves in another star.
I don't know about you, but I learned a ton tonight. And I'd like to thank Ed, Justin, Pilar, and Tasha for sharing their videos and sharing their journeys. And this is really just the start. I think it's just about time for the movie. And ironically, I think it's just about time for movie night up on the space station. And that really was something that I think my crewmates and I really loved, because it wasn't really just about watching the movie. It was about the fact that we gathered around. It gave us something to kind of talk about and make fun of, or see what people liked and learn more about each other. And I'm hoping that that's what this ASU 365 night is doing for you too. because it's important, the people around you. Some of them are part of inventing our space future right now. They're from the School of Earth and Space Exploration, or they're from the Interplanetary Initiative, or they are artists or writers or lawyers or people in finance. It's going to take all of that to leave the planet and go and settle somewhere else. So without further ado, let's watch Dune.